Please help me welcome Tim Shurr.
All right, everybody, welcome to the show. I'm very excited to have a special guest with us, Chief Fred Windisch. And Chief Fred is with the fire department in Ponderosa, which is about 25 miles from downtown Houston. And as everybody knows, Houston has gone through a lot of stuff lately. And so I called Chief Fred and I said, how's it going? And we had a really great conversation. And so I thought I would bring him to the show because Fred's got a lot of experience, both with the fire department and serving the communities. And he's also worked with Shell Oil, and he's got a lot of wisdom, and he's been at it for a while. And so I thought, what a great opportunity to bring him to the show and talk about this leadership, under fire. So Fred, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Jim, and thank you for your work.
Yes, I appreciate that. So
I appreciate you not calling me an old guy. That's what I
That's right. That's a good way for the interview to end.
There you are.
So
let's start. Let's start by, and we'll get into the leadership underwater. We'll get into that, but I think it's worthwhile to give some background of me and my fabulous life that I've had. It's been, I don't know what God did to me, but he was pretty good. And I started in the volunteer fire service in 1972 in my hometown of Staunton, Illinois, a little town of 5,000 people, about 40 miles northeast of St. Louis, Missouri. An old coal mining town, and all that good, all the small towns around there, old coal mines that are now shut down, of course. But I joined under duress, and it's kind of funny how the way life takes its turns. I was hired at Shell Oil Company's research lab as a research mechanic when I was 20 years old. And there's a little background before that. My dad owned a Shell station, and he knew people, and I knew people. And there was an opening in this lab. And I went to trade school in St. Louis, automotive maintenance technology, and I hated it. And because we had to do English and all that other stuff. It was actually an associate's degree before they made associate's degrees.
Okay.
And I didn't know it then. I'm just, water's running off my ears. I didn't know anything.
Sure.
So anyway, I went to Shell in February 16th of 1970 to try it out. And 30 years later, I retired. But the big thing there in 1972 in my hometown volunteer fire department, I'm at work, and a carpenter working with our group, he said, "Freddie, you need to join our fire department." I said, "I don't want to. I ain't got time. I don't want to. I'm a mechanic. I'm a race car mechanic. I did everything."
Yeah.
Built a scooter when I was 6th grade. Okay.
Oh, that's amazing.
So anyway, I went to a meeting and I joined, and the rest is history. I'm still a firefighter member since 1972, and here we are in 2017.
Wow.
So yes, I'm an old guy.
That's amazing.
So anyway, Shell transferred us in 1975 to the Houston area, right? In fact, where I am right now. And I commuted. I had the opportunity, and hindsight is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Perfect vision. It is just wonderful. I had lots of opportunities working for that great company. By the way, people buy Shell gas because it helps my pension and my stock. So it is a great company, and they took care of us. They educated us. They put up with us. I should have been fired 100 times or more. I'm telling the truth here. The bottom line is that as a mechanic and fuels and lubes, and then I operated test engines, testing those products, making new products. I was exposed to a lot of PhDs, master's degree, engineers, chemists, you name it. They
Mm-hmm.
were there. A lot of educated people around me.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it rubs off on people. So I was in the right spot at the right time for a long time. Then I went into polymer science, and then I went into corrosion science. The actual department was material science and engineering.
Okay.
Remember, I'm a mechanic, okay?
Yeah.
But Shell developed us. And then I went into health, safety, and environment.
Okay.
Because of my fire service career,
Mm-hmm.
they wanted me in that department. And my last 13 years, I was a senior safety rep, and I did a Shell answer book for those older people who remember those.
Mm-hmm.
They gave them away at service stations. But the bottom line is my Shell career was very, very rewarding. In retrospect, it's a job, but in retrospect, it's just a beautiful thing. It's just great. So during this time period, I forgot to mention, wife and I have been married 48 years.
Whoa.
September 6th of this year is 48 years. We
That's
actually
impressive.
met in our hometown in fifth grade.
In fifth grade.
Yes,
Wow.
and we went to Catholic school, and then we dated after high school.
Wow.
So we made it. We made it through some challenges like everybody else.
Oh yeah.
And you've met Teresa, so you know we're opposites, and maybe that's why magnets work so well. So I don't know. But during this time period, the day I moved in to Ponderosa, the fire district, I heard sirens. Remember, I was a volunteer in Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
So I heard the siren. I put my 5-year-old son on my Yamaha YZ175. I did that too. I did motocross. I did enduros. I did trials. I did all that stuff as a young man. And we went down the street, and I saw the fire engine. There was a woods fire, and I watched, and the guy was in sweat running off of him and running the pumper. And I said, "How do you join?" He took his hat and coat off, threw it at me. He says, "Get your to work." I'm still here.
Oh my God.
True story. True story.
Really?
So
that's on the job training at its best right there.
Absolutely. The reality here is that I stayed with it. And that's part of my message today, is commit. If you don't commit to things, you're never going to accomplish anything. Again, hindsight is really, really perfect vision. Mm-hmm. So I stayed with Ponderosa all that time, and I moved up through the ranks. I did the lieutenant, the captain, the senior captain, the assistant chief, and the fire chiefs in 1985. The members elected me in 1985. And I was chief for till 94, and then I lost my way a little bit. I got unelected and went to assistant chief, and then the next year came back as chief. I left it in 2000. Get my years right here. In 2000, I became the Harris County Fire Marshal. Right when I retired, in fact, the county asked me to retire so I could take that job. And I was the second fire marshal in our county, which is the third most populous county in the country. So another successful look back.
Yeah.
And then in 2003, I left there, and then Ponderosa hired me as the first full-time fire chief here, based on longevity, based on knowledge, based on commitment, and all those good things that come along with good family upbringing, and knowing the right people, and communicating, and everything else associated with success stories. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying I see it now. You can't look into the future. You can certainly have goals, but you can't look forward and say, I'm going to do this, because it sometimes doesn't work. But looking backwards in the rearview mirror, by the way, don't drive your car in your rearview mirror because you're crashing.
That's right.
It's a point of reference.
Good tip from a safety marshal. There you
go. You go. And so that's a snapshot of me. all during that time period, I did have personal goals. I went to the National Fire Academy and did the Executive Fire Officer program.
Huh.
I'm not a schoolboy,
Uh-huh.
and it's a post-grad program.
Yeah.
It's 4 years, 2 weeks a year, and you have to write a paper every year
Mm-hmm.
by the APA process,
Mm-hmm.
which you probably know about.
I do. I do.
And
Yes.
it took me 7 years to do it because I was a volunteer and I had to use vacation time and all
Uh-huh.
that. So they let me slide, and I finished that, and that's the highest class you can take at the National Fire Academy. They don't
Wow.
higher than that. Very
Yeah.
thankful. See, I get a little bit emotional there. So anyway, that's in a nutshell a really great life. Our son is 47 now.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell people our son's 47, we've been married 48 years, and my wash machine's 47 years. So, and then our grandson is 18, and he's playing junior college baseball. He's a lefty pitcher. He's a fabulous hitter, player, and he tells Grandpa that he's going to the major leagues.
That's
and
awesome.
One day at our lake house in Lake Conroe, I said he wanted to put the jet ski. He said, "Papa, would you put the jet ski in?" And I said, "What are you going to do for me?" Typical me.
Mm-hmm.
"What are you going to do for me?" And he turned around. He says, "As soon as I make the majors, I'll give you season tickets." So the personality thing kind of spread to him too.
Well, you have a long list of accomplishments, and you're obviously very proud of your family, and you talk about those family values and the value of friendship and some of that stuff that might seem old-fashioned that you and I both know is essential to being successful and happy in life. So many people are just caught up in how busy they are and constantly trying to accomplish things or make more money, and a lot of times they'll sacrifice the things that make living worthwhile. So it's a valuable reminder. So you have so much experience and going through the ranks. I'm just curious, how is it in the fire department now compared to how it used to be like 20 years ago? What's different now, if anything?
Well, today there's a lot more requirements today for firefighters. The day I joined Ponderosa, I told you the story. They threw the coat and helmet at me, said, "Get my butt to work." Okay.
Yeah.
Today, you have to be certified
Mm-hmm.
by national standards. You have to be an EMT.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not for our volunteers, but they have to be certified. But our
Mm-hmm.
paid people have to be EMT minimum. Some are paramedics.
Mm-hmm.
I refer to them as paragods because they can do lots of medical stuff right there before your very eyes.
Wow.
And so today's world in the fire service, I'm not talking about small town. This district is only 13 square miles, but we have 50,000 people living here.
Wow.
And the assessed evaluation of the properties is $3.1 billion. That's for the B. So it's a city, but it isn't.
Huh.
It's unincorporated. But we still have the same responsibilities. And so the leadership portion comes from your internal culture. And you get that with family values. I'm glad you brought that term up because family values probably has more to do with our internal psyche than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
My belief.
Mm-hmm.
It's the way you're brought up and the work that you do as a kid and growing up. It's ingrained into your being,
Mm-hmm.
and it just continues.
Mm-hmm.
And I think today, in today's world, it's easy to not do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of mentioned it. It's easy to take the low road. It's easy to, I want to try something else and not commit. 30 years with Shell. My wife was 30 years with Sears.
Mm-hmm.
It's that culture of staying with and getting through the hurdles. Trust me, there's hurdles.
Yeah.
A 33-mile commute every day in Houston traffic for 25 years. That's a hurdle. That's a
Yeah.
hurdle. But, the checks didn't bounce and the drinking water was cold. So,
Well, that's a good point that you bring up, that just because you have values doesn't mean that suddenly life is going to get easier, but you can get through it easier because you know who you are, or you know what your purpose is, and it can help you to get through those challenges easier. So,
many years ago, a friend of mine, and he's in the positive people world.
mm-hmm.
He's retired now, but he did a presentation at our symposium where you were last year.
Mm-hmm.
And Jim did this little thing. He said, look, and I don't remember the words, but there's 5 little lines on a piece of paper, put it on a stick note, put it on your bathroom mirror.
Mm-hmm.
And it's your personal affirmations. And you probably teach people this,
mm-hmm.
but you put it on your bathroom mirror and you look at it every day. So that isn't on my mirror every day, and people are going to laugh when they hear me tell this story. Every once in a while, I'll wake up in a bad mood. I don't know why. And how often, I don't know, a month or two. You just kind of, it's whatever.
It happens.
And I have a conversation with myself in the mirror, only 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
What's the matter with you? Why do you feel this way? And I remember Jim's, not specific affirmations, but it's in there somewhere. There's a videotape in there.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of changes my attitude very quickly. And I know it sounds silly, but if people are having a bad time, bad day, have a discussion with yourself, because I think it helps. And I walk out of the bathroom and I feel better. I feel energized.
Yes.
I don't know what it is.
I don't think that it's silly that you're having the conversation with yourself, because people are always having conversations with themselves. What's silly is that the conversation you have with yourself is if you're making yourself feel bad, if you're making yourself feel less than or stressed out in any way, that seems silly to me. Because how is that helping anything? It's not making you feel better. It's not improving your energy. It's not making you more resourceful. It's not making you find more solutions, right? It's holding you back. So if anything, pay attention to the conversations that we're already having, and then make sure that you start changing them by asking better questions, right? And sometimes you got to literally say, what's wrong with you, right? What's going on? And then you can start with more empowering questions like, all right, how do I want to feel? What do I want to believe? What can I focus on? What will make me feel better? Or what am I grateful for, right? And so it starts to, because your mind's always going, so we've got to direct it. So you said a couple of good things. So that one, I want to backtrack, because you made another point that I want to really emphasize, because I work with a lot of company leaders. And usually in the beginning, there's some resistance. There's usually 1 or 2 leaders that have really great vision. Sometimes they're the president of the company, and they bring me in because they know that their people can be more effective together, but they're in their own way. And so one of the reasons why you stayed with Shell and your wife stayed with Sears for all those years is because what you said earlier was that Shell took care of you. The company took care of you, and it created loyalty, right? It made you feel like they gave a damn about you, and as a result, you cared more about them. And I think that that's something that when people are working on their corporate culture these days, they think that it's just a set of values on a poster or a Friday pizza party, and it's not. It's how well do you take care of one another?
Loyalty is absolutely key. People can laugh at me. My 2006 Explorer just kind of sits in the driveway because I have a Chiefs ride, but has had 1 tank of other brand fuel in it.
That's great.
I mean, we will drive when we drive it. We look for Shell stations.
Uh-huh.
I just went up to Fort Worth to pick up a high water vehicle because ours got flooded in the floods. and federal surplus. And took our F-250. I'm a Ford guy too, by the way.
Okay.
And rented a big trailer. And I'm looking to buy diesel up Dallas area 3 weeks ago. They were out of diesel up there. I pulled in 6 Shell stations.
Huh.
I had to go to a Love's truck stop. My heart was pounding to buy diesel. But yes, loyalty. And that goes, philosophically here in this organization.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I had this chief visiting from Illinois. How do we do things?
Mm-hmm.
And we visited other departments.
Mm-hmm.
And when I took him to the airport this morning, he said, I've observed something about you. And I go, uh-oh, what? You always expect bad news. He said,
right.
Your people are very loyal to you.
Oh, yeah.
It makes me feel good.
Yes.
I mean,
it's the highest compliment.
It is. And that, again, loyalty, I'm glad you brought that word up because it's very important. It's so easy to be disloyal.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to be angry. It's easy to be sad. It's harder to be positive. It's harder to do the right thing, even when you think it's difficult. It's harder to do those things, but eventually it pays off in life success. It's just amazing. Who would ever believe that an auto mechanic, fresh out of school, would now be financially stable, own a lake house, beautiful lake house on the water. It's only 40 minutes from my main house here. Boat, pontoon, jet ski, you name. I mean, who would? An auto mechanic. I don't get it.
Well, you live those values, and they were modeled to you. You were taught going along. One of the things you said was that you had you could have been fired 100 times, but people kept believing in you. They kept seeing your potential, and that allowed you to see your own potential. And I'm sure that that's what you do for the people that you lead now. You keep seeing their potential, and yeah, they're going to act out, but I bet that you keep believing in them so much that they start believing in themselves.
I tell them too, I mean, straight up, I said, I will do anything to help you as long as it's legal. And they believe that. I don't care if it's the type of insurance we buy for our full-timers or our benefits for our volunteers. They know that I'm not lying to them because I demonstrated. And I'm not bragging. I'm just, it's my culture. And it is what it is, as the cliche says.
Yes, yes. So now you take all that experience and you have your team and you're grounded and you have the values. And then as life does, all of a sudden you have this giant storm that comes rolling into town. And people are freaking out. And that's a lot of people to have in that small square area. I didn't realize that it was that densely populated. You've got all that stuff.
In 3 days, maybe 3.5, we pulled out 700 people, touched 264 homes flooded. We kept track because I'm a data guy. And that's just in 2 subdivisions. That's 2 subdivisions. A total of about 500 homes were flooded in these 2 subdivisions. Some people got out early like they were supposed to, and others didn't. And literally we tracked all that. And I think as a leader, here were my goals. And I made a note over here, and I do this pretty often. I guide, but I don't direct. The people who work here are highly talented, high energy, dedicated professionals.
Yes.
All I had to do was literally tell them what our goals were. And then you set up a command process and blah, 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 blah. And then they run the show. I'm there to give them resources as necessary. Set some parameters, focus on safety. I have one of my guys, the current and the boat bumped a tree and he fell out of the boat, had a life jacket on, but he went under the water, about 7 feet of water, went blown down in the water. But because they care enough, he had a lifeline on him tied to the boat, and the water's running. It's not swift water, but it's moving.
Mm-hmm.
And they drag him back in the boat. Now, his head hit that tree, thought he had a concussion. By the way, one of our volunteers. So boom, haul him out, radios chattered, here's what's going on. We had an ambulance waiting, went straight to the hospital, checked him for a concussion. He was fine.
Good.
He came back and he said, why did you send me to the hospital? I was okay. I said, we didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
We take care of you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you. And off he went. And but it made an impression on him. That's what we do. So in leadership, you shouldn't be micromanaging, as the old saying is. I have a tendency to do that sometimes, especially with the financial end. But generally speaking, in operations, the paid professionals and volunteer professionals, and I'm using that term, volunteer professionals,
mm-hmm.
some are paid, some aren't,
mm-hmm.
but they know what they're doing.
Mm.
So let them do it. Let them do it. I kind of look at, my job is to keep that rail car on the track.
Mm-hmm.
The locomotive, just keep it from tipping over. Just keep it going down the rail.
Yeah.
And I got resources. I got people. All I got to do is just kind of keep it going.
That's really great. I love that. That's real leadership, where you're not controlling. You're really trusting that your people are going to do what they need to do. And then you set up the boundaries and the expectations, and then you encourage them, check in, and keep them moving in the right direction. And people really appreciate that. Sometimes if leaders are too controlling because of their own issues and their own fears, then you hold people back from what you paid them to do.
They're afraid to do things. And all of us, we didn't talk about risk yet,
mm-hmm.
but each and every one of us, we need to take some risk. And I'm not talking stupid risk,
mm-hmm.
but stretch yourself. Just like my executive fire officer, I had it in my head. I knew it would be tough. And after the first session, I'm going, I ain't going to make it.
Mm.
I did my paper and I got a 3.6 on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not a schoolboy.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, maybe I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is that I tried.
Yeah.
But again, it's easy not to try.
Mm-hmm.
And that's associated with risk in your own life and what you do. So, there's stories all around like that.
Yeah. People are really controlled by fear. And, for me, I used to joke around and say fear, FEAR, stood for F everything and run.
I love
it. and then it was false evidence appearing real, or finding excuses and reasons.
I wish I could remember all those acronyms.
I know, years of that. And I turned it around. I turned it into feeling excited and ready, right? Because if you don't take a chance, then, you never know if you could. And that I wonder what could have happened will drive you crazy, right? Instead of just going for it and finding out. Someone said the other day, they said that going 1 for 7 is way better than going 0 for 0. And I thought, that's good.
Absolutely. That is.
So you've got all this wisdom now, all this life experience, hindsight 2020. If you could go back in time and talk to that little boy that was you when you were 10 years old. What advice might you give that kid to help make life a little bit easier?
Commit to be the best you can be.
Hmm.
I mean, if you don't try to be great, and it's hard to define that. Let's just say good.
Mm-hmm.
You'll never do it. It's just like our grandson. Cody is an outstanding kid. Attitude, smiles, good looking, muscular, talented. When he gets a B in school, it bothers him.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not talking about D's. I'm talking about A's.
Mm-hmm.
He's almost a straight A student.
Mm-hmm.
In grade school, high school, and now we haven't seen his first report card. We'll see what it is. I suspect it'll be fine.
Yes.
And when he started junior college, now remember, he's the only grandchild, and so he's moving away from us, and he was having trouble with math, and he's always had trouble with math for whatever reason. And he was there 2 weeks, and he's telling his mother, he's saying, I don't get it. But I went and got my own tutor. He went on his own because he knew he wasn't doing good. He can't stand to get bad grades. So he went to get a tutor, called his mom back 2, 3, 4 days later and says, I got it. Success. He's on the way.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. People, they sell them so short, right? Because part of being, do your best and try to go for being great just means that you keep trying. You just keep trying to be better, right? And some days it's going to go smoother than others. But that's all that really means, is that there's no such thing as failure. There's just feedback. And so try and take a shot and then learn from it and get the feedback and then take another shot. Most people, they take the feedback as criticism and then they stop trying because they're afraid of feeling bad. But you're going to feel bad either way. You might as well use it to move forward and feel better. And
my life has not been perfect by any means.
Sure.
There's been all kinds of challenges.
Yes.
But I can tell you, and remember, I don't understand how this all fell into play. I can't get my arms around it.
Mm-hmm.
But in 1985, when I was elected the fire chief here, I remember remember the videotapes are here.
Right.
Back then it was floppy disk, maybe. But anyway, I still have a 286 processor. But anyway.
I think many humans are still running MS-DOS in that.
But I remember telling myself, I'm going to be the best volunteer fire chief in our country.
Nice.
I told myself in front of the mirror. I told myself, and I'm going, I don't know why. It's because of friends I made. They encouraged, and one of them, John.
Mm-hmm.
Am I allowed to mention his name?
Sure you can. I'm a big
John
fan
Buckman,
of John.
lives in your area.
Buckman.
John and I are brothers from a different mother. and he was brought up Catholic. The nuns beat him up. I was brought up Catholic. The nuns beat us up. And they forced us to do good. They forced us.
Yes.
Literally. Bang, bang.
Yes.
And,
those nuns kept my practice full for a period of time. My therapy practice.
And so, people like John and others that I have met.
Uh-huh.
I mean, here's another story.
Okay.
That'll build on this. In 1989, I went to the Fire Chiefs Conference in Anaheim, California, and my wife was with me.
Uh-huh.
And I walked into the exhibits, and they're putting them together. And I went to the International Fire Chiefs Volunteer Committee booth they're putting together.
Mm-hmm.
And I walk in and I say, hi, my name's Fred. I'm a volunteer chief in the Houston area. And there's John and Billy Goldfeder, who are now icons in the fire service.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those guys are they're the ultimate everything. And I walked in, they're sweating because they don't turn the air conditioning on in the convention center during setup. And I said, I want to contribute to this group. And Billy turned around, picked up a box and threw it at me, said, get your ass to work.
That seems to be a recurring theme for you.
Exactly. And that's how I got started with the International Fire Chiefs, 1980. With the Volunteer and Combination Officers section, I served on the big board of directors for 11 years. I'm still on the board of the Volunteer and Combination Officers section. Chairman, vice chairman, secretary, treasurer, director. I commit. You're going to do something, do it. And so nice. That's again a little piece of my history, and I still don't know why.
Huh. I like what you said, though. You know, if you're going to do it, right? Do it right and do it full out, and you know, just do it.
I can tell you though, with my old motorcycle days, motocross, I only did 2 races. It tore up my bike, and I got tired of fixing it. I quit that part.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's interesting. So, you know, when you're like, even, you know, racing in motocross, if you don't commit and you hold back, you could get hurt.
Oh yeah.
Right. So, you know, you have to be all in. You know, at your lake house, you can't have one foot on the dock and one foot in the boat for very long. You got to
go that once. That's where my shoulder hurts. I went.
Yeah. That's right.
Won't do that again.
We learn from our pain. All right. So 2 more quick questions, because I know you got to run. So what's one of the biggest mistakes that you've made that you've really learned from?
Let me think about that for a while. I don't know if I want to share it. It was pretty horrible. It was pretty horrible. No crime or anything.
I think that people want to know that people that are as successful as you have fallen down, right? Because in the beginning, you're like, I was always in the right place at the right time, but that doesn't mean it was easy. I mean, you still worked. You still got knocked around. People
called me the Teflon fire god. Because I just did okay. But the one incident, I really don't want to share that. It was horrible, I can tell you that. I lost my job and was unemployed for a year. It was because of a stupid mistake, not illegal, maybe immoral. And I came back to reality. I fought my way back. I actually went to a therapist.
Well, you know what?
And by the way, she said I lost my personal power because of this issue.
Yes.
And she forced me to finish my 4th year EFO. Said, you go home right now and you finish that paper right now. I'm ordering you. She was tough on me. And again, that personal power was gone from me, and I regained it.
How?
So, she convinced me that what I went through, a lot of people in this world has already done it. It just happened to me.
Right.
And I shouldn't worry that much about it. It'll be okay. It'll be okay. Move forward. And I wish I could remember her name. She was really good. She was probably better than you. And
let's not get carried away.
So that was a downfall in my life, and it lasted a good year and a half. So I was actually on unemployment.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that, because I think it's really, people really value that honesty and that transparency, and you willing to be vulnerable right now and real, because people really crave that. You know, with all the stuff about fake news and people not trusting each other anymore, people want to know that you're real and you're being sincere. And they have heard the successes, but they want to know that you've had failures too, because otherwise they feel like, what's wrong with me? Because I'm getting knocked down and things aren't going right for me and I'm losing my way. And is it just because I'm not good enough? And it's like, no, you're human. And we all find ourselves in those situations sometimes. So, the reason that I call this the psychological secrets, for growing your business or your life is because I want to understand, how do you shift it? And what you said was, one, you got support. So you went and you found somebody that can help you, right? Two, she told you what to do and you did it. You didn't debate it. You might not have been happy, but you took action on the advice that you were given and you finished through. And then three, it wasn't something outside of you that needed to be fixed. You had to go in here. Success is an inside job. So you were changing what was going on so that you could build back up your personal power.
In that final paper, I got a 3.86.
Ooh, nice.
And remember, I'm not a schoolboy. I've said that before. I did it.
Yeah.
Just did it. And then, and then of course the fire department helped me because they hired me the time for the organization to go full-time chief. And I was here and I didn't leave and knew my capabilities. And again, everything, all the stars lined up.
Well, that's true too. The stars didn't just line up. They lined up because you stuck around. You could have got the hell out of Dodge, right? You could have been so embarrassed or humiliated that you didn't want to show your face anymore, and you could have went and hid in some hole, but you didn't. You just swallowed your pride, did what you needed to do, and got back engaged again. And that's how the stars aligned. You didn't get lucky. You put yourself in that situation, just why you put yourself in the situation that got you in trouble. Well, you put yourself in the situation that got you back on track. And that is what
I never looked at it that way before. So thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. That is what personal power really is. And that's how you take that personal power and you channel it, right? And then once you channel it, then you share it with others, because there's going to be people that you're leading now that are going to maybe be, not sure if, lose their footing, right? Or maybe making some bad decisions based on whatever. And the fact that you can relate at that level, so they don't feel like you're just trying to preach into them, but they can understand, man, I've really been there. I mean, you don't even know how much I've been there, right? And you're going to be okay. That's huge. So, all right, last question. And you've had so much of this and you've offered so much great advice. So my question is, what comes to mind when I ask you this? What's the best piece of advice you were ever given?
Never stop learning.
Never stop learning. Okay, because
you never can achieve anything more greater unless you take some risk. You have to learn how to do new things. So therefore, I'm not talking about how to squirt water. I'm talking, learn new things.
Yeah.
Never stop learning to broaden your own personal horizons. Related to that is be a people person. Work toward being friendly. My wife gets so aggravated with me because I'll talk to a wall. I'll be in a grocery store, and this is kind of a joke, all right? And every once in a while, I'll be in one of my moods, and I go, "Hey, Bob, somebody in that store is named Bob." And she walks away. She walks away.
That's funny. Well, you know what? You gotta come at life with a sense of humor sometimes, right?
Yep. Yeah. And cover it up with a lot of alcohol. No.
Yeah. There you go. That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, this has been fantastic. I knew we were going to have a great time, but this has been even better than I hoped for. So thank you so much for your service. Thank you so much for your time and all the wonderful wisdom that you've shared with everybody. And, this has been really, really great. So thank you so much.
Let's do it again sometime. And I'm 68 now. So let's do it when I'm 78.
All right. That sounds good. I'm going to put it in the calendar.
There you go.
All right. Chief Fred, thank you very much. I appreciate it. All right. You take care. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.